Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be on. Thank you.
And if you're still watching ABC News Live, this is a special feature. The senator has agreed to enter the Thunderdome, so she's gonna answer questions from everybody on this panel.
Oh wow!
Including some quiet and shy panelists like Governor Chris Christie over there.
Governor Christie. It just shows bravery that we need in a president.
I'm going to let the panel start first, so Yvette, you can start off.
Hello, Senator Klobuchar.
Hello.
There was a really interesting moment early in the debate when the question about whether you think a Democratic socialist can actually win. Everybody kind of hesitated. You raised your hand. You answered the question. Bernie Sanders is the front runner now and could potentially be the nominee. If he is, are you going to support him against Donald Trump?
Well, I've made very clear I'll support whoever our nominee is. But the question was, do you think a socialist should be running our ticket, should be at the head of our ticket for our party? And I said no, because
If he gets support of the majority of the delegates.
Well, I've said very clearly, I will support the head of our ticket. So that's a good point. But I think it was more, do you want that person to be heading up the ticket? I do not, because I think we need a candidate that can bring people with her, and that means moderate Republicans, independents, people up here know what I'm talking about, people that maybe stayed home in 2016, or people that voted for Donald Trump. Just having left Iowa, there were 31 counties that had voted for Barack Obama and then turned around and voted for Donald Trump. And so I think bringing those voters in, I am the unique person up on that debate stage that has consistently won in red congressional districts, Michelle Bachmann's district, every single time. And I have done it by telling people the truth, as you can see that I do on the debate stage, by making a case for an economic agenda, and by getting things done. People want a president that can win and can get things done. I think it's that simple.
Rom?
Senator, a lot of discussions are about income inequality, which I actually think is a manifestation of the diploma divide. And I didn't see a lot of discussion today about education. And so the question is, a topic that wasn't really discussed, education. What would be the goal? How do you get there? And what were the things that you've done as a senator that would actually advance education?
That was the one question I wish they had asked. And there's people up here that have worked on this, and I know you have. So I look at it differently than some of my colleagues, including Senator Sanders. And I know they have these bumper sticker solutions like free college for all. I always tease them, they're not thinking big enough. They need to step back and look at our economy. What are the jobs that we have now and we're going to have in the future? We're going to have over 1 million openings for home health care workers. We are going to have over 100,000 openings for nursing assistants. We're going to have over 70,000 openings for electricians. We are not going to have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. We are going to have a shortage of plumbers. And so then you say, how do we make this work? Investment in K through 12 and preschool. That's a big part of my plan. Free 1- and 2-year degrees, something that President Obama wanted to get done. And then when it comes to 4-year degrees, I would double the Pell Grant so the need meets the help. And that means from $6,000 to $12,000 a year, and then double the income level. I know it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, but it will work for our economy. And I don't think we should be using hard-earned taxpayer money to send wealthy kids to college, which is exactly what their plans do.
Okay. Governor?
Amy, I don't want to sink your candidacy, but I thought that your close tonight was by far the best moment anybody had in the race, and I think a preview for how somebody could effectively run against the president. So you have the ability to do that. What's your strategy between now, not just Tuesday, but as you go beyond, to get yourself from where you are now, 4 or 5%, to being in that top 2 or 3, so that people can start making that contrast between you and Sanders and Buttigieg and maybe Biden if he's still around?
Exactly. I, as I've said, don't have the name ID of these other candidates, and I don't have the bank account. But slowly but surely, I have met every single metric. I think a lot of people didn't even predict I would make it through my speech in the blizzard. They literally thought we couldn't announce in the blizzard. I did it. Then they thought I'd be out by the summer. Then they thought, oh, what's going to happen to her in these debates? And for me, having debates like this is critical. Getting those newspaper endorsements like the New York Times and the 3 big newspapers in New Hampshire, that means something. People read them. They get to know about me and how I can lead. That's my goal. And then I just keep going. I'll be on the debate stage in Nevada. I'll make my case there. I have an excellent record of working on immigration reform. A lot of people talk about it. I've actually worked on it, and I look at it from an economic imperative, and I think that'll be helpful for me out in Nevada.
Great.
Matt?
So I got a question. A majority of the country thinks the economy is good, and a majority of the country thinks that they're doing well economically. Do you think at some point whoever the Democratic nominee is has to at least acknowledge that the economy is going well, but that the race is not fundamentally about whether or not it's doing well, but what's the character of the person in the White House, that we could have both a good economy and a decent person in the White House? Because sometimes I feel Democrats are trying to tell voters what they actually believe isn't right.
Well, I think a lot of people understand that there's jobs out there right now in a lot of parts of the country, including here in New Hampshire. And that's how the president might evaluate it. He might also say, oh, the stock market's going up. Okay. But I look at it in 2 ways, 2 major things we have to tackle that he's not doing. One is the shared prosperity, the income inequality, making sure that we have people that are going to fill those jobs of home health care worker that we know we're going to have because we see an aging of our population. That means things he hasn't even talked about. Increasing the minimum wage, doing something about child care, universal health care. Then we have those long-term challenges that are much harder to talk about because maybe they're not the #1 thing on voters' mind. But I think there are people out there that are worried about the debt. They're worried about the deficit. I think there's people out there that listen to me when I say we want a president that understands that if you're going to do trade negotiations, that you have to keep your promises and keep your threats with countries like China that see the long term. The underpinnings of our economy when it comes to the farm economy, where we've seen major increases in bankruptcies. So I think it's really, there's two critiques here, and I think they're both real to people, maybe different people, but I can tell you a lot of people don't feel that prosperity. He promised he'd bring down prescription drugs. He said on Fox News he'll bring them down so much it would make your head spin. Well, people's heads are spinning, but it's because they've gone up so much.
Terry?
Senator, one of the things that people have said about the 2016 election is that it showed that sexism is almost as strong as racism still in this country. And we have seen a couple of women candidates, strong women candidates, already drop out. And you hear from voters doubt that America can do that America's ready for that. Do you feel that that is still the case for you in the Democratic Party or beyond? Whatever they tell posters, whatever they tell their kids, when they go to the voting booth, they may not be ready.
I think they are ready because I look at the woman governor of Michigan that just gave the response to the President's State of the Union, Gretchen Whitmer, or Laura Kelly in Kansas. That is a very red state, and she won that race, which means Democrats voted her, but so did independents and moderate Republicans. You look at all these new members of Congress that got elected, many of them very strong women. So I start with those facts. The second thing is I am someone that doesn't talk about this a lot because I've won my elections doing very well with male voters, and I was the first woman in my state in both my jobs as the county attorney and then the senator. And I felt for the first time, getting at what you're talking about, that I needed to address it. I was the first one to bring it up on the debate stage, and that is that 5'4" is not a bad height for a president. That is the height of James Madison. That you don't have to be the skinniest person in the room. I think there's a lot of focus on how women look when they think about who can be the president, and that you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. So a lot of my argument has been based on merit, and that I'm certainly tough enough, as you can see on the debate stage, to take on this guy, and that in fact maybe we need someone that's not like him and not as rich as him. Maybe we need someone that's very different than him to bring voters in.
Finally, I'll take the last question here. You know, the president's approval approval rating ticked a little higher with the Gallup poll that came out. And in Iowa, there weren't record numbers of Democrats that came out and caucused. Are you worried that Democratic voters are not fired up enough like they need to be? And is that the fault of the party, the candidates, or Donald Trump?
No, I'm not worried about it. And we know there was all kinds of issues with the caucuses, so I'm not going to take that. I'll look at one other example that is much more profound when you look at the numbers. 2018 election. Talk about fired up. We won in seats all over the country. We flipped the House of Representatives and turned it back into the People's House again. So we had record turnouts. And what I have seen at our events and rallies, New Year's Eve, Keene, New Hampshire, I had 550 people at 5 o'clock on New Year's Eve. People are excited. They are, maybe some of them are quieter. I remember a voter in Conway, New Hampshire, who was in a line, and everyone had these happy stickers on, you know, I'm a Supreme Court voter, I'm a climate change voter, and he just had a brown jacket on. I said, sir, you don't have a sticker on. And he leans over and he says, that's because I was a Trump voter, and we don't have stickers, and I don't want any of these guys to know because they're my neighbors, and they don't know. But I'm not doing it again. You hear that, and for so many of these moderate Republicans, independents, that we need to build this big coalition, it's not just an economic check, which is what we talk about on the debate stage all the time. It is also a decency check. It is a patriotism check. It is the thought of a president that sits next to Vladimir Putin at an international conference, asked about Russians' interference on election, and makes a joke about it. Those voters that maybe don't agree with everything that we say on the debate stage, I don't agree with everything on the debate stage, they think to themselves, hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their lives on the battlefields fighting for democracy, standing up. 4 little girls at a church in Birmingham, Alabama, they lost their lives, innocents at the height of the civil rights movement, because they were trying to be part of that democracy and people were trying to push it away from them. So we have to remember that it's not one size fits all, and I'm very good at doing that and bringing people in.
Tuesday will be a good test. Undeclared voters can also vote in this primary. We'll see where that motivation, if they're all fired up there. Senator, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for entering the Thunderdome. You're invited anytime you want.
So the Thunderdome, is that what it's called?
I just called that today. Because look at this gang, you know? I mean,
that's right.
He saw the first Road Warrior, and that's all. It was his only movie you've ever seen.
It was either politics or professional wrestling for this crew, so everyone here, except for Yvette. She's nice.
We've been fed for hours.
The debate was in an ice arena, so, you know,
there
I don't
you
think
go.
people understood that.
All right,
I
Senator.
felt like I had a home team advantage being in an ice arena.
Definitely have the blood for it. All right, Senator, thank you so much.